Well, good morning, all. Good to see you all this morning on this beautiful fall morning. Perhaps just by way of a little theme for this morning's homily that I really think can be drawn out very easily from our second reading. Mindsets greatly move us. Mindsets greatly move us. I have this a little bit too much of an attachment, I would say, to watching little videos of movies with sports movies, especially with coaches at halftime giving little prep speeches. So one of my favorite movies of all time is Rudy. If you haven't seen this, I don't think you're an American. But so Rudy, of course, is all about Sean Astin, the actor, plays the historical figure of Rudy, this walk-on player that has almost no athletic talent, but has tenacity. And his entire life he wants to play for Notre Dame football. And of course, he starts out just kind of working for the janitorial team, just trying to get any in he can to learn more about the field and how he can get on there. And there's that great scene where he comes in to clean with the janitorial staff in the locker room of Notre Dame football. He walks in there, he's just filled with the sense of the history, the presence. And he kind of puts down his little cleaning equipment, gets up on that little stool, kind of looks around the room. He's pretending to be the coach at halftime, and he goes on in this scene to speak about a scene he has reenacted over and over and over again about this famous Notre Dame coach. And he kind of gets up on this little stool and he's like, "We're going to go inside, we're going to go outside, we're going to go inside and outside, we're going to keep on the run, boys. We're not going to stop until we go. We're not going to stop until we get across that goal line." And the janitorial staff is like, but here's the reality of mindsets move us. And when we get into a particular mindset, sometimes we don't even know what kind of mindset we're in, but it's going to direct our actions. It's going to direct our movements. And something about even the psychology of sports is for a coach's perspective, you have the influence to speak words into minds and creating a mindset we can win. We're going to go, we're going to go, we're going to go, we're going to go. And all of a sudden you're like, yes, we are going to go. And then it actually can happen. And so in the Christian life especially, we're always going to have mindsets as humans. Every single one of us has a mindset in life. Oftentimes it's kind of a subliminal thing. We don't often think about what is our real mindset for life. But it's especially true in the Christian life. And the goal, of course, is we want to have the mindset of Christ. We want to have a Christian mindset. And I would propose that St. Paul, in the second reading, if you want to turn to page 56 in the Missalettes, gives us a great, we could say, archetypal mindset for the Christian life. Archetypal, meaning it's this overarching drive that every Christian must have, not just one particular Christian among many, but for everyone. We want to have this great mindset of St. Paul. And so if you're looking at page 56, this is in the letter to the Philippians. It's interesting, the letter to the Philippians, he wrote this in prison, he being St. Paul. He wrote this letter in prison, and there's more references to Christian joy than any other letter. So you see this Christian mentality of as a Christian, with the right mindset, with the mindset of Jesus, you can rejoice even when you're in prison. You can rejoice when you're in suffering. We want that kind of mindset. And so St. Paul says this. I'm just going to read a couple lines here. "Brothers and sisters, Christ will be magnified in my body," magnified, to make it great. Oftentimes Christ is very small in us. But St. Paul is saying, Christ will be magnified in my body, whether by life or by death. For to me, life is Christ, and death is gain. If I go on living in the flesh, that means living his human life, still living, still breathing, that means fruitful labor for me. And I do not know when or which I shall choose, life or death. I am caught between the two. And then here's the principle. I long to depart this life and be with Christ, for that is far better. Yet that I remain in the flesh is more necessary for your benefit. So what's the mindset St. Paul is proposing? To have a simultaneous, twofold mindset. To have a great desire for heaven and to meet God. A driving force. I want to meet God. I want heaven. I want it now. And yet also to say, but the Lord has not given me death yet, so I will use my time well for the good of others. Notice how this mindset perfectly reflects the twofold greatest commandments. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and your mindset, and your neighbor as self. And there's almost like, well, how do we balance these two? Perhaps many of you have gone down to the great Mississippi River, which starts up in northern Minnesota. Maybe you've kind of followed it down, and down near Prescott and Hastings. That's where two things come together, the great confluence of two great rivers, the Mississippi and the St. Croix. And then when the two, right below the Prescott Bridge, they come together, there's what's called a confluence of the rivers. And it's kind of, the water gets kind of rough because there's two mighty things coming together. And sometimes that's what the reality is in this life. There's like almost this tension. St. Paul's like, I long for heaven. Take me now, Lord. But in a spirit of great joy, I know he has given me the gift of time, and I want to use it well for your benefit. I wonder if this is our mindset as well, or how present this mindset is in our life. For example, if I were to kind of give you a little gauge of desires for certain things, like how many of you right now, like on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like, ugh, I'm repulsed, 10 being, give it to me now, I'll do anything to have it, would really like to have strawberry shortcake, like right now, with vanilla ice cream? It's kind of an odd question because it's morning. We're like, well, I mean, maybe later, but like right now, for me personally, I'd put it at like a 3. Like I'm like, I'd rather have pancakes. Give me something else. But if I were to say to you, how many of you right now, on a scale of 1 to 10, would like juicy, hot, perfectly cooked bacon? And that sounds a little better. Like, yes, I would. I'd put it right about a 7 right now. Give that. So like you can, on any given day, we have certain desires. I wonder how great is the desires for Catholics living in the United States for the living God and to see him now. I'd say a bit of it, that's why it's kind of mitigated, is because we have a fear of death. And this, so like the Christian life is meant to be lived in the power of the resurrection. Like if Christ is for us, like who can be against us? Like if we actually believe in the Christian narrative, it's like when I die, if I'm living in faith, like I know I will see the living God. We want to actually be captured by the desire and the hunger for heaven. It's what we're made for. Simone Weil, a great philosopher, she once said, in heaven, there is no disconnection or disconnect between our desire and the fulfillment of that desire. Think about all the various desires we have in life. We desire happiness. We desire perfect happiness. We desire perfect beauty, like we long to look for beautiful things and to become beautiful. We long for great peace. And on any given, like there's all these great transcendent human desires, and they're always, relatively speaking, unfulfilled this side of heaven. And Simone Weil says, in heaven, there will be no dividing line between all of our desires and the fulfillment of those desires. They will be completely unified. It's everything we're made for. We want to have that driving force. And yet at the same time, to realize that this is not escapism to desire heaven. Sometimes atheists or agnostics will make this argument about Catholics. Like, because you desire heaven, you're actually not going to do anything. You just want to escape this world. You want to escape suffering. St. Paul's in prison writing this. And he's like, I long to depart for God, but God has not taken me yet, and I think I still want to stay here for your benefit, for the good of working for the glory of God. So to desire heaven is not escapism. It's not just trying to evade suffering or difficulties. But when we have this mindset, it begins to permeate how we live in time. C.S. Lewis was known to say, it's precisely those people who most desired heaven that had the most impact on earth. It's precisely the people that most desired heaven that most impacted earth. You think about Mother Teresa, a great example. She had a tenacious desire, and I don't know if you've ever read her writings. There were certain times in her writings she was like, Lord, please take me. I long to see your face. She's just quoting the Psalms. And then she would say, but you have not taken me, and my sisters need me. The poor need me. This is a deeply Christian mindset. Mindsets move us. And this is the most fruitful mindset we could have as a Christian, is this tenacious desire. God, I want to see your face. In heaven, there will be no disconnect between my desires and the completion, the fulfillment of desire. And yet, it's not up to us to take it. That's a little bit of a principle by which Catholics discern that we cannot say, promote euthanasia. Euthanasia would be to saying, oh, my life, maybe my body is not doing very well and I'm stuck in a hospital bed. I can end my life now by my own choice. And Christian Catholicism would say, no, because your life is a gift. And it's not up to our selfish choice of autonomy of when I can choose to end it. So God has given us this great desire to seek him, to love him. Heaven is for real. But we do not have control over when he decides when that's going to happen. And so we want to use our time well. I'd say one of the greatest movies I've ever seen on this latter point about good for neighbor, a simultaneous desire for God and a good for neighbor. It's a very difficult movie to watch, but perhaps you've at least heard of the movie Schindler's List. Schindler's List was one of the most, it won so many awards, won an Oscar among other things. It was a 1993 film about Oskar Schindler. Oskar Schindler was a historic figure. He was a German through and through, but he was also a deeply Catholic man. Now, when he was growing up, he had come across a great deal of wealth in his life. He was a very talented, very charismatic person. You watch the movie and it captures that very well. He could influence people, he could make friends, and he had all these natural talents, but he also had a great deal of resources and money. And he freely was spending it on just the best wines and great meals and going out to these bars and dancing, and everyone was like, who is that? I want to be like that. That was Oskar Schindler. Oskar Schindler, in the course of living in the rise of the German army, started to see what was happening behind the scenes in the plight of the Jewish people. And slowly he came to this deep conversion to his Catholic faith. But I must use my time well and not just use my resources for myself. And so he started, of course, to fund a business whereby he secretly, lawfully hired many, many, many Jews to work for him, and so that they evaded all the various laws which demanded that they would go to Auschwitz. And so he saved over 1,000 people, 1,000 Jews, countlessly giving all that he had. And they're one of the best scenes in the movie. Sorry to ruin it for you. If you look it up on YouTube, it's like a 4-minute scene. And it's simply entitled, I Wish I Could Have Done More. And this is a few of the quotes there. There's this great scene with the great theme music of Schindler's List going on. And there's this very quiet scene. All the people he saved had come when he was leaving. All this, 1,000 Jews were piled into this little square. And in a very pregnant, silent scene, one of the leaders of the Jewish people that he had saved came up and handed him a gold ring, etched with Hebrew letters, and said it's Hebrew. And it says, he who saves one man saves the whole world. And they handed it to him. And Oskar Schindler, played by Liam Neeson, just started to weep and said, this ring, it's gold. I could sell this. I could get 10 more people. This car, he looks behind him. He was still a wealthy man. He's like, this car, I could sell it and get 10 more people. I could have done more. I could have done more. I could have done more. And he started to weep profoundly, and everyone came up, all the Jews, and just placed their arms around him and to comfort him. Like, no, you have done well with your time. You have saved us. This is a deeply Christian mentality, a mentality or a mindset moves us, how we move through life. And a Christian mindset that St. Paul has, that we are all called to have, is this great hunger to see God. And it's not escapism. It's what we're made for, to see God, to be in union with him. And yet also he's given us the gift of time. Not so much to build up our own kingdoms, but to use everything that we have, even if we're in a hospital bed, and it seems like we can't do any good for society. God has given us the gift of time, and he can use it for his good. This is a last thing I'll say to you. Many of you know this quote from John Henry Newman, the namesake for the Newman Centers. And John Henry Newman was once on a ship, and he had left his job as one of the greatest professors at Oxford University. He freely left that job because he converted to Catholicism, and he was fired, basically, because you weren't allowed to be a Catholic in his position. He freely, at the top of his powers, of his intellectual experience and resume, he freely left his job and was leaving on a boat to go elsewhere to begin a new life. And it was a very deep, dark day when he was on this ship. And he wrote these words: God has created me to do him some definite service. He has committed some work to me which he has not committed to another. I have my mission. I may never know it in this life, but I shall be told in the next. Somehow I am necessary for his purposes, as necessary in my place as an archangel in his. If indeed I fail, he can raise up another, just as he can raise stones to become children of Abraham. Yet I have a part in this great work. I am a link in a chain, a bond of connection between purposes. He has not created me for nothing. He has not created me for naught. This is a mentality of Jesus. This is a mentality of St. Paul. This is to be a great Christian mentality, and mindsets move us. A tenacious desire to see God, and it's not escapism. And to say, and yet God has not taken me. He has given me this gift of time to use it for his glory. Let's use that well and compete well, so that we can say at the end of life, in the words of St. Paul, I have competed well. I have kept the faith. And from now on, a great reward is in store for me from the living and true God. Amen.